So the Rattlers had a Week 18 bye, and I decided to finally make it up north this season and cover a Northern Arizona Wranglers game. Funny enough, I didn't get to cover either Rattlers or Wranglers games, both in the Valley and up north, so I made up for lost time in this game right here. Both teams were 9-5. It was the Vegas Nighthawks at the Northern Arizona Wranglers. Week 18 matchup with massive playoff implications, because if the Wranglers would have won, the Rattlers could have found themselves in a position to get a home playoff game in round 1, or kind of could have pushed themselves to the playoffs in general, because, spoiler alert, they ended up not making the playoffs because they lose this game, and also ended up losing the final game of the season at Duke City, ending their season without the playoffs. So I'm just going to give a very quick scoring summary, but before I do that, I do just kind of want to acknowledge Coach Moran. I did not know the individual, I did not know the man, but every single person I've spoken to within the Wranglers organization has told me what a great dude he was, and it just seemed like he had a massive impact on that community, so I do just kind of want to acknowledge that real quick right here. And honestly, moments like that kind of make you realize what's important in life. Rest in peace, and I have nothing but the best wishes for his family and friends. For the Rattlers fans watching, this is going to have some implications for you, because obviously that was the round 1 matchup between the Rattlers and the Vegas Nighthawks. But anyway, the scoring gets started off by the Wranglers, a 19-yard pass from Josh Jones to John Maldonado, 7-0 Wranglers before being tied up about 4 minutes later, Jerome Johnson a 4-yard run. And the mobile quarterback that is Jerome Johnson has been a thorn in the side of Arizona teams all season. Great season for him. I just kind of wanted to go ahead and mention that because I feel like I'm going to be talking a lot about him. Because there's also a lot of turnovers and false starts, and Josh Jones throws an interception. There was a blocked kick. I want to say it was the next score right here. Flowers, a 30-yard blocked kick return touchdown, 14-7. The Wranglers get the ball right back. Jones hits Oyakami for a 10-yard touchdown, tying it back up at 14. Wranglers get the ball back about 3 minutes later. Coleman the second, a 4-yard rushing touchdown, 21-14 Northern Arizona, getting the lead right back. For Jerome Johnson on a 9-yard run, ties it back up at 21. And that would be the score at halftime, 21 all. Start of the second half. The Nighthawks get the ball first, but Axel Perez is probably one of the best kickers in the IFL, hits the deuce, giving the Wranglers a 23-21 lead before Jerome Johnson scores another touchdown, a 6-yard run, making it 28-23. Vegas gets the ball back. CJ Wyndham, a 30-yard touchdown, making it 35-23. And from this point, both teams would exchange scores, but it just never felt like Northern Arizona was going to close that gap. So let's go ahead and get into it. Josh Jones, a 6-yard touchdown, making it 35-29. Jerome Johnson matches a 6-yard rushing touchdown of his own, making it 42-29. Oyakami, a 1-yard rushing touchdown, making it 42-37, before CJ Wyndham on a 20-yard reception makes it 48-37. And again, it just kind of keeps going this way. Josh Jones, with 58 seconds to go, a 1-yard run, making it 48-45. Then 18 seconds later, for the final score of the game, Jerome Johnson, a 7-yard run, making it 55-45. And that is your final. The Vegas Nighthawks clinched a playoff berth in that game. They end up clinching a home playoff game for round 1, and the Wranglers end up going home empty-handed. Jerome Johnson. I know I typically stick to the Arizona team that I'm covering, but 12 for 15, 152 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. That's just passing, before 19 attempts and 100 rushing yards for another 5 rushing touchdowns. He was 7 touchdowns on this offense. He pretty much was the offense. Let's be honest here. Jerome Johnson had a phenomenal game. He's had a phenomenal season. Josh Jones, 18 for 32, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. There were definitely a couple of plays where I don't know where he was going. It kind of seemed like he misread. Things happen. It is what it is, but it's kind of one of those bigger games and you would have liked a better performance. But then again, 219 yards is nothing to scoff at. It just kind of wasn't enough to beat one of the best offenses in the league. Anyway, he also had 8 attempts, 77 rushing yards, and a couple of rushing touchdowns. Again, he played well. He had a good game. It was just not good enough. Anyway, Oyakami also had a rushing touchdown, as well as Coleman the second. On the receiving end of the ball, Kobe White, 7 receptions and 100 yards, couldn't get on the score sheet. He had a great game. Oyakami, 5 receptions, 47 yards, and a touchdown. David Elder, 3 receptions, 30 yards. John Maldonado, he only had 2 receptions. Half of those were touchdowns. 2 receptions, 26 yards, and a touchdown. And Shannon Reed, 1 reception, 16 yards. It wasn't a bad game. I think the offense played well enough. It came down to that blocked kick return for a touchdown and then that interception. It was 2 possessions. Again, it wasn't a bad game. I do apologize if I made it sound like I thought it was a bad game. It was not. Just it wasn't good enough to beat Vegas. On the defensive end of the ball, there were a couple of notable plays. Had a couple of forced fumbles, a couple of pass breakups. The only sack going to Mason Newton. And that was a pretty big play. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't good enough to move him forward. It is what it is. It is unfortunate. The Wranglers did have a really good season. season. Kind of sucks it had to end the way it did, but at the very least, there were some very entertaining games down the stretch, including that comeback victory against Bay Area. That was one of the craziest comebacks I've ever seen in my life, and you can never take that away from the Wranglers this season. Anyway, Tucker, I appreciate you. You know who you are, and I am Matthew Jacobson with Arena Football Talk. Stay tuned. I have one more regular season Rattlers game before heading into the playoffs.